This is Euronews Tonight. Here are your top stories. High-stakes diplomacy in Moscow. French President Macron sits down with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in a bid to find a solution to the crisis in Ukraine. German Chancellor Scholz makes his Washington debut, meeting President Biden for more talks on Ukraine, while in Kiev, European foreign ministers gather.
Spotify says it will stand by American podcaster Joe Rogan despite anger over his previous racist remarks.
And age is just a number at the Winter Olympics as 15-year-old figure skater Kamila Valieva becomes the first woman to land a quadruple, and 41-year-old Johan Claret takes the title as the oldest medalist in alpine skiing. I'm Helena Humphrey. Good to have you with us. President Emmanuel Macron has held talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Moscow in an effort to try and ease tensions with Ukraine. The French president is on a diplomatic push to try and avoid conflict starting between Russia and Ukraine. Macron will go to Kiev on Tuesday to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky. Ahead of the meeting, the Kremlin downplayed the hopes of reaching any solution. President Macron said he was reasonably optimistic but didn't believe in spontaneous miracles. Well, President Macron has spoken with the Russian president 3 times by phone in recent days, as well as talking to Joe Biden ahead of his trip to Moscow to plan a coordinated approach. Let's get the view from our Russia analyst Galina Polinskaya, who joins me now. Good evening to you, Galina. Good to see you. To begin with, President Macron is the one who travelled to speak to President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. What do you think he'll want to take away? Something that he can then present to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when he goes there on Tuesday?
Good evening, Helena. Well, exactly. No spontaneous miracles are expected by Emmanuel Macron himself, but I think that the best outcome that he could bring to President Zelensky tomorrow in Kiev is the agreement of Vladimir Putin to bring the level of the Normandy format talks to the higher level, at least to the level of the foreign ministers. This is the only format which exists right now where Ukraine and Russia are actually sitting together and talk, and the political advisors restarted this process recently. And of course the goal of Emmanuel Macron is to push forward and to see Ukraine and Russia at the table of negotiations. But as he said to the journalists, he does not expect any miracles, so he does not believe that he will bring back the news that Russia is pulling its troops away from the Ukrainian border. He, however, wants to put at the table today, while talking with Vladimir Putin, some elements of security trust building, which would be part of the equation. That's how Emmanuel Macron described it, that would allow to avoid the war. And what is important is that Vladimir Putin was very interested in listening to those suggestions, and I hope that we will get to know more when both of them will come out to the press after those talks.
Well, Galina, talking about no miracles or breakthroughs, I think it's fair to say that NATO's already made its stance very clear that it will not give any security guarantees in terms of limiting, further membership, particularly when it comes to Ukraine, for example. So where does this leave President Putin then? I mean, is there the possibility that Russia could act so as not to be seen as losing face?
Well, Russia did say that its major concerns were ignored. Vladimir Putin said that personally, but many top politicians also said that there were positive things in the US and NATO answers to Russia's security guarantee demands. And if we talk objectively about the interests of Russia's security, actually then there is a whole package of initiatives that was proposed to Russia, and those initiatives, they actually were something that Russia wanted to talk about before, but no one would talk with Russia because of Ukraine and Donbass and what is happening there. But now that has changed. The US has proposed to Russia to discuss the arms control talks, to open the talks on arms control, and this is very important. And many analysts in Russia, independent analysts, think that actually this is the good outcome. And don't forget, Helena, that Russia has been always saying that it does not plan any war against Ukraine.
Important points there, Galina Polanskaya. As ever, thanks for your insights. Well, it's not just in Moscow where the push to find a diplomatic solution to this crisis is ongoing. Kiev is playing host to Germany's foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, as well as several other European ministers. Now, Baerbock held talks with her Ukrainian counterpart, Dmytro Kuleba, and is due to go to the conflict-ridden Donbass region in the southeast of the country on Tuesday. Now, foreign ministers from Austria, Slovakia and the Czech Republic are in Luhansk in eastern Ukraine to look at efforts to overcome Russian hostility in the border region. Well, let's head straight to Ukraine then, to Avdiivka. That's in the east of the country, where international correspondent Annalise Borges is standing by for us tonight. Good to see you, Annalise. To begin with, Ukraine, once again, the scene of some frenetic diplomacy with European foreign ministers meeting with the Ukrainian foreign minister. What has been the focus of their attention, Annalise?
Indeed, 4 foreign affairs ministers in Ukraine today, an unprecedented diplomatic activity, and their focus has been to see for themselves and to visit places like the area I'm standing right now. We're just less than a kilometer from the contact line of a conflict that has been going on here in the east of Ukraine for 8 years now. Just a couple of 100 meters away, separatists have been holding fire against the Ukrainian army. They have been there for the past 8 years. These Russian-backed separatists that have taken control of pockets of territory that are internationally recognized as Ukrainian. And of course, they have self-declared different institutions and republics in that area. And people here in Ukraine, people have been meeting over the last few days, have been telling me the same thing over and over again, that while the entire world has been talking about the possibility of a war, they have been dealing with the reality of one for the past 8 years. And that is part of the message that the Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Minister Dmytro Kuleba will be trying to convey to his European counterparts today and tomorrow, saying that Ukraine wants to be part of the conversation, wants to be part of this diplomatic flur of activities that's been going on now all over the world. He wants to decide its own future, and Kuleba also said that he wants to convey to his European counterparts some of Ukraine's red lines about its territorial integrity, but also about its sovereignty when it comes to deciding its own future, what alliances will join or will not join in the future. And of course, one of the issues is also the fact that Ukraine refuses to negotiate with representatives from these Russian-backed separatists that are currently fighting less than a kilometer away.
Annalise, on that point of Ukrainian sovereignty, also when it comes to decision-making and messaging, over the weekend we heard from the US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan saying that Russia was, quote, 70% ready to invade Ukraine. So I just wonder, how are those comments going down where you are, when we also know that President Zelensky has also been trying to calm the population and to calm even the markets?
Indeed, it's been a delicate balancing act for Ukrainian authorities over the last few weeks. They have been trying to keep the situation under control, conveying that message, all the while asking the West for help. I asked President Volodymyr Zelensky about that, and he said it was part of his responsibility as a leader not to stir panic. He needed the population to collaborate, and he needed the economy, as you said, to be stable, even if it was to arm his soldiers in case of a conflict. So these kinds of what Ukrainian officials here describe as apocalyptic messages from Western officials don't necessarily help. The US and certain US officials have been quoted as saying that Kyiv, for example, could be invaded in a matter of days. These are very serious assessments, and they don't really help the situation on the ground, according to Ukrainian officials. They say that the West should be cautious when it comes to these assessments, when it comes to releasing that kind of intelligence or at least research. And they say that, of course, while they hope diplomacy can work, they are also very aware of the threat. They've been dealing, once again, with this threat and with this kind of tension for almost a decade now.
That's right, Annalise Borges, our international correspondent on the ground for us tonight in eastern Ukraine, as ever. Thanks, Annalise. Well, the EU's Foreign Affairs Chief Josep Borrell is in Washington for talks with the Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Borrell is there for a joint discussion on Ukraine, but more importantly, on alternative energy sources. Brussels wants to put measures in place to secure Europe's gas supply if it's cut or severely affected, should Russia decide to stop supplying it if conflict with Ukraine begins. Well, for more on those talks, I'm joined by Stefan Grober, Euronews correspondent in Brussels. Stefan, I think it's fair to say that these energy talks come at a crucial time for all countries involved, don't they?
Yes, Helena, that's even an understatement, and good evening to you. So it's the first meeting of the US-EU Energy Council after a 4-year hiatus during the Trump administration and the first meeting during the current Ukraine crisis. What can be done if Russian gas supplies to Europe are disrupted? This is a question Brussels is dealing with for several years now. In fact, the European Commission set up contingency plans following the Russian annexation of Crimea, plans that have been updated over the past months, I was told. It's clear that Europe cannot cope with the gas crisis alone, and here's where the United States comes in for help. Earlier, I spoke with an energy expert who told me what exactly Washington needs to do now. Take a listen.
Two main things the US can do. The first is to try to put pressure on US suppliers to make sure that as many cubic meters of US LNG, so liquefied natural gas, can go from the US to Europe. And the second thing they can do is to put pressure on other suppliers of LNG, such as Australia, Qatar, to try to shift as many BCM of natural gas as possible to Europe, having in mind that obviously Europeans are going to pay the market price for that natural gas.
Of course, this is something the US has been doing for a while now. For example, the Emir of Qatar has been at the White House with President Joe Biden recently, and the EU Energy Commissioner has intensified negotiations with producer countries. The problem is we're talking about a tight global gas market that is based on long-term contracts, and even the spot market for immediate delivery has only limited spare capacities available. Now, some countries like Norway and Algeria, both top European importers, have said they're already operating at full capacity. Others have pointed to limited shipment capacity. So it's going to be tough. And even if the US or Qatar and others manage to produce and supply more to Europe, many experts doubt that this will be enough to cover the lack of Russian gas entirely, Helena.
Certainly a tricky one. Stefan Grober reporting from Brussels. Stefan, thank you. Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai has given her first interview to Western media since claiming that a high-ranking Communist Party official sexually assaulted her. Peng told French sports paper L'Equipe that the allegation on social media, which was soon deleted, was all a huge misunderstanding. Tom Hill now reports.
China's Peng Shuai in happier days before she made and retracted a social media post alleging sexual assault. Now she's told a French newspaper in a closely controlled interview it's all an enormous misunderstanding. But is that enough of a reassurance about her welfare?
I'm not sure we're able as a sports organisation to make that call. I think the President was right in saying it shouldn't be for us to judge whether there should be an investigation or not. You've seen the words which in the interview which she gave to L'Equipe. I think we need also to listen to her. And we need to read what she's saying. As we've also discussed, we've been in contact with her. We remain in contact with her. We met her in person.
Peng Shuai briefly disappeared from public view after the post in November, but has since made a number of appearances at state ceremonial events.
Athletes from across Europe got off to a flying start on day 3 of the Beijing Winter Olympics. British teenager Kirsty Muir managed to secure her place in the ski big air final, and 41-year-old French downhill skier Johan Cléry became the oldest medalist in alpine skiing. Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva also proved that age is just a number, breaking records at the tender age of 15. But it was Dutch speed skater Irene Wust who stole most of the headlines, becoming the first person to win individual gold gold medals at 5 different Olympic Games. Well, sports reporter Michael Kern, I think it has fair to say, has been glued to the Olympics for us. Good to see you, Michael. I mean, we've got to start with Irene Wüst because, I mean, to compete in 5 Olympic Games in itself is remarkable, but to take gold at 5 of them as well is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, and she did it in stunning fashion as well, retaining her 1,500 metres title in the speed skate. It's an Olympic record time as well. She did it in 1 minute 53.28 seconds. So plenty of records falling for her personally today. She's retiring next month. It's an extending 12th Olympic speed skating medal she's won as well, and a 6th gold within those 5 games. And also she's racing in the 1,000 metres as well. So there's still chance for her to add to that tally as well. But incredible achievement, and I think it's fair to say she certainly etched her name into Olympic history, and I think more importantly has inspired many further future gold medalists and speed skating enthusiasts alike.
Well, let's talk about someone who's just at the start of their Olympic journey, and that is Kamila Valieva, smashing records at just 15. Utterly amazing.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And it seems the Russians have got a line of these amazing athletes, because the past 2 Olympic champions were also Russian. Adalina Satnikova, she was 17 at the time. Elena Zagatova was 15. So they're certainly doing well. And they had a clean sweep at the recent Europeans as well, dominating the sport. But Camilla's performance was incredible, because she became the first female figure skater to land a quadruple jump at an Olympic Games. So I can just about jump a little bit, let alone 4 times. It was in the team event where the Russian Olympic Committee had already sealed the gold medal ahead of the United States and Japan, but it was incredible. And to really kind of put some icing on the cake as well, she did it again later in the routine as well. So she certainly underlined her status as hot favourite for the women's individual event as well. But she's certainly someone who likes to set records. I think now it's about 4 or 5 records she's set every time she's competed since her senior debut, which was within the last 6 months. So definitely one to watch.
Absolutely, and with such elegance and artistry as well, which really I just found incredible. Let's talk about France's Johan Cléry then, because he claimed the silver medal in the men's downhill at 41 years old. But how close was he to nabbing that top spot?
So close, 0.1 seconds, and this is what it all comes down to in competitive sport. 0.1 seconds was between that and the gold medal. It was a thrilling downhill at the Winter Olympics, as you mentioned there. Took the silver to become the oldest medalist in alpine skiing, and this is what I love. It's the human stories when you look into Johan. He first showed up at the World Cup skiing scene 2003. Most of his rivals that were in the final today were still on the baby slopes at that point. He's had a 19-year career, 216 starts on the circuit. He's never won, but he's made the podium 9 times, competed in 4 Olympic Games, and guess what? He's topped off with a silver medal. So an amazing career for him.
Absolutely, AJ. Nothing but a number showed there in Beijing. Michael Kern, thank you so much. The CEO of Spotify has said that the platform will not silence Joe Rogan after clips of the podcaster using the N-word resurfaced over the weekend. Matthew and our team in the Cube have been following the story.
Helena, Spotify once again in the spotlight for its stance on one of its most popular podcasters and how they say they will not censor Joe Rogan despite a growing backlash. The singer-songwriter India Ari has become the latest artist to join a growing boycott of Spotify after she on Instagram released videos of Joe Rogan where in the past he used the N-word and other racist terms. This is what India Ari had to say.
I want to be clear, in no uncertain terms, where I stand on this is that he shouldn't even be uttering the word. Don't even say it under any context. Don't say it.
Now, Joe Rogan has responded to this, saying that he hopes it will be a teachable moment for him. Have a listen.
Hello, friends. I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly.
Several videos from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast have now been removed for racially insensitive language. But amidst all of this, the CEO of Spotify, Daniel Ek, has said that he does not believe the platform should be a censor to moderate content. And he also, in a letter to employees this weekend, once again said that he does not believe that silencing or cancelling Joe Rogan is the answer, despite his very hurtful language. Daniel Ek also said that Spotify would be making an investment towards music and audio content towards historically marginalised groups. But Helena, the criticism of Spotify is growing, like we have seen for other big tech companies in the past. And criticism is also growing for Joe Rogan himself, with many people who previously backed him, like actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, also now changing their tune.
All right, Matthew, following all the reaction and fallout on that story, thank you so much. Well, we leave you now with a no comment from Libya's ancient Roman city of Sabratha, which, due to conflict in the region, is considered endangered by UNESCO. Thanks for watching Euronews Tonight. See you soon.